I love that this works now. Welcome back to Bread and Butter, where we're serving up the basics for Hearthstone Improvement. This is episode 161. My name, in fact, is Tito Santana, and I'm joined as every week. Every week, he's here. Pylet, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And one of our favoriteest returning guests, LanguageHacker. LanguageHacker, how are you today?
I'm good. Good. Had a nice, relaxing weekend going into the work week, and kind of excited to talk about Hearthstone actually, for once.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Hearthstone, have you done anything interesting in Hearthstone lately?
I managed to get enough points from January and February ladder to make it to playoffs next weekend on coming up next week on March 15th. And theory crafting, but otherwise nothing crazy notable. I wasn't really playing spicy decks.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Pilot, how about yourself? You had a nice, quiet, relaxing week, right?
Hearthstone wise, yes. Not really much Hearthstone going on this week because didn't have time. Did finish up an arena run that I don't remember when I drafted it, but I had a 1-0 Death Knight arena deck that I ended up at 7 or 8 wins with. One of them being a mirror that had very similar cards for the loss, and I forget what I had a priest that hit a high roll that made a big board out of nowhere that I couldn't quite clear because I had no clears in my deck. I had all tempo. It just out tempoed people. But so happy with that. Outside of that, haven't really played a whole lot of anything.
I also haven't played a whole lot of Hearthstone on the standard ladder. It's been a busy week. I've been trying to prepare things. We did the theory crafting, like LanguageHacker said, and that was an absolute blast. But I'm also trying to, do the normal content thing and all that. So I'm getting better at, no, I'm not going to just sit down, turn on the stream and play Hearthstone. I need to do other things. And I'm trying to find the balance for that right now, which I've been saying for the last, year and a half now. But I think we're starting to move in the right direction. We'll talk about that in life outside of Hearthstone. But theory crafting was absolutely amazing. I streamed for 12 hours. I thought I was going to die. It was I was so tired. And you think about it, that's not that long compared to people that stream for 8 hours a day. And they're used to it. But doing a 12-hour stream is a lot for when you're doing, I worked in the morning and got to work the next day and all that. It's a lot. But it was no regrets. Just that they only say you have to do 6, or they say, hey, you could do this Windows 6, but you can do it as what Ridiculous Hat used to say is when we asked, hey, can we do both? He's like, I'm not a cop. So we would just do that. And I saw Warshak used to do it all the time. And I was like, well, if we're going to be like anybody, let's be like Warshak. And yeah, we did it. It was great. But LanguageHacker, I know you've been super busy. We tried to have you on the show a couple times and you've been like, I am too busy. So how is life outside of Hearthstone?
Just wrapped up in some work stuff. We've had some, I'm going to be as vague as possible while still trying to give some information. We've had some structural changes, some personnel changes as well. And because of that, I've been taking on a lot more responsibility. Not necessarily tied to more compensation, but just a lot more things to learn and have under my wing. Which hopefully will die down a little bit as the structure sort of settles, but still not at the end of that. So a lot of my spare time has been taken away from my spare time and been lopped onto work stuff, either actual getting tangible stuff done or doing some supplemental learning to solidify understanding. Stuff you can do in Hearthstone as well, but not in Hearthstone.
I kind of like it though, because it's like you qualified for the tournament this weekend and you haven't really had as much time to play as you want to, so you're just kind of do vibes. You're like we're just gonna vibe our way into the World Championship. I like it. It'll be a story. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Pylet, how about yourself? What have you been doing outside of Hearthstone?
I mean, there's a significant balance patch coming up anyway, so any prep before this would have been little possibly changed anyways. But yeah, I've been super busy with school. This was the show weekend for our spring musical that I helped direct. So had Friday and Saturday night, and then the Sunday afternoon. Got home from all that stuff like half an hour or so before we started the show. So been a busy weekend, but very, very good. Just a very long week of that. Somewhat, thankful this year or helpful this year. The show that we picked, we ended up doing the junior version of the show, which is shorter because they cut some of the stuff out and whatnot. It's meant to be one act. We ended up splitting it, and it ended up being like an hour and a half show rather than a 2.5 hour show, which means all of our rehearsals were an hour to 2 hours shorter because we were done quicker. So I got more sleep than I normally do this week, but still a very, very long week. But enjoyed it. Great show. Glad to be moving on to the next chaotic thing. Other games, just been still kind of playing a little bit of Ball Pit as kind of a chill, let's play for half an hour, not think too hard game. Playing that a little bit and continuing to play through the Pokemon Legends ZA, getting farther along in that and trying to get that finished up before I decide to bite off another bigger game to play.
Nice. And much like Language Hacker, I can't talk much about my work, especially with everything going on in the world right now. But needless to say, it's been very busy, interesting. Outside of that, trying to get the YouTube thing going and stuff like that. We actually hit one of our milestones, and we got over 500 subs. So now we are on our way to monetization. We just got to get more view hours, which is going to take more time, but the subs thing is the harder thing, I think, out of the two. Is the other ones just kind of putting the time and getting more long form out there, because I'm never going to get the shorts, because that's for my coworker has a daughter, and she's like, I don't know, 9, 10, 11, something like that, and she is like getting invited to like things in New York and influencer things in LA and all that, and she goes viral all the time. And it's like, I guess they had this one thing where there's this like new toy, and it's like one of those collectible things, right? And they have a bunch of videos where like everyone's opening it, and they're like, oh my god, I got the rare. And she did it, and she was like, oh, I got the rare. And it was so like flat and like apparently they've attached it to like some juxtaposition, and she's gone crazy viral. She, oh yeah, she got like 2 million views on that, and she got like 400 subs. I'm like, oh great, like that's like only like my entire career, not even close. But good for her. It's been really, really good. So outside of that, this weekend was Pokemon Go all out event. So they pretty much had legendaries spawning in the wild, and there were so many legendaries you can catch. So all weekend, me and my son were at the mall, and we were collecting things and doing the things, and we got a lot of Pokemon we didn't have. So that's a lot of fun. But before I do my normal thing and throw it over to Pylet, I want to announce a little bit of thing. So one of the videos I did for one short I made for promoting the theory crafting got me a top 3 in a little contest in the theory crafting Discord, which got me another code to give away. So we're doing things with that. We got a couple Twitter giveaways. So look for titosantanahs. You got like 2 days to figure that out. But we're also going to be giving out a mega bundle to one of our patrons. So I will be doing that drawing on Tuesday. So if you've been like, maybe I should be a patron, I'm just saying, good time for it. But we'll talk about that later. I just wanted to make sure that I get that at the beginning of the show, because if you kind of get distracted and you don't watch the end of the show, and you'll be like, hey, I didn't know about that. Well, you know. But Pylet, it's been kind of quiet in Hearthstone. Is there any news?
We do have some news. We got with kind of the reminder of the last little thing of events coming up for leading up to Cataclysm. We got a few pieces of new information with that, including a balance preview for the patch that will be coming this Tuesday. So 35.0 is coming Tuesday, March 10th. That'll drop the new set fully into it, start the pre-release brawl, all of that normal stuff. But they wanted to give us the changes that were coming, because these are also active during theory crafting, so people would have found them out anyways. So there are 2 bigger changes coming, and then a handful of small nudges. The biggest 2 coming to Elise and Blob of Tar. Elise is staying a 4-mana 3/5. Same requirement on the battle cry if you start with 10 different costs, craft a location, but they're changing the locations. All the locations are going down to 2 durability for every mana cost, and then they're changing 3 of the options. Bursting Geyser, which is the death rattle, deal damage to all enemies. 10 cost is going from 10 to 5, 5 cost 5 to 3, 1 cost 3 to 1. Nesting Grounds, which is Raptors. They're changing the 10 cost from 6 to 4 Raptors, and the 5 cost from 3 to 2 Raptors. And then Radiant Crystals, which is the summon a copy. 10 cost is going from a 10/10 to a 5/5. 5 cost is going from a 5/5 to a 3/3. And you can no longer choose a copy on a 1 cost location. That is being removed from the pool. So the Raptors and the copy, I kind of think a lot of people saw coming if they were changing, how the locations worked. The death rattle kind of surprised me a little bit. So that might be an issue that's not in our part of the ladder, but I think the 1 cost copy going away is a huge deal.
I think it probably wasn't a it probably was just a preemptive thing. I don't necessarily know if it was a problem right now with the death rattles. And I just went and checked Rag when we talked about it, because if it was trigger all your death rattles, that would have been kind of interesting with the but it's actually just trigger. That's actually just minions. But I bet you someone in their play testing, they were like, oh, this becomes a problem. So they got rid of it. But yeah, no, it's the whole getting rid of copy things, or make copy on 1, making the copy smaller, 2 durability. It's going to make it so that way Elise will find places in certain decks. You are still going to see people copy Colossuses sometimes, but it's not going to be every deck, every game. There's going to be a strategy. It's like, okay, I need to take Elise here to do this because this is really what I want to do. So I would say maybe we'll see it in 3 to 5% of games rather than 50 to 85% of games. So I think it's a good change. We didn't see, I only saw her in a couple games during Theorycrafting. Not that that's any kind of barometer. Remember, we'll say that multiple times. Theorycrafting is not a barometer for real life, but I don't think she's going to be worth the deck restriction in building anymore, because now there's a whole mess of other things to do, and she's definitely not nearly as strong. What do you think, Mr. Hacker?
Yeah, agreed. When I was putting together some of the decks with Theory Crafting, I naturally realized that a lot of the decks I had put together had almost 10 mana costs. So I thought, let's just throw Elise in and see how she feels. She felt very slow in almost every single deck, which I don't think is a bad thing. Like you said, I think if we see her in 5, 10, 15% of decks as opposed to like 50, 60, 70, it's going to feel a lot better. You're not going to see her come down and say, oh, okay, great, Elise on 4, location to 5. It's going to seem like a reasonable play that happens on curve for some decks that want to make use of her, which I think is good. It's a tool rather than like a bread and butter.
I see what you did there.
Yes.
And then, Pylet, I should mention before we get to this, there were more balance changes. They also gave us all the reverts, but they just kind of gave us those on the day of Theory Crafting or the day before Theory Crafting, and they're like, you can talk about it because we're going to see that, but they're going to put the notes out tomorrow. So you'll get the official notes tomorrow, but there are some things that are out there now, or that you have seen, that have been changed. So
yes,
just so you know.
That was my next bullet point.
Oh, should I have read the show notes?
Apparently. So Tito only looks through the show notes to find the mistakes I make, like that Zeddy was still on the bottom of them this week. Other kind of significant change is Blobatar. Blob is going from a 4-mana 2/4 to a 5-mana 4/4, and also the tokens in the death rattle will become 2/2s instead of 1/2s. So this is not only slowing down the first blob, but also breaking up the play pattern with Ravenous Fell Hunter and Demon Hunter, because that card does not rotate. That is a Emerald Dream card. So they buffed up the stats a little bit to kind of compensate for that. I think that 5 is definitely, I think, turn 4 and turn 5 are very big breaking points when you can play a slower card like this. And I think that between that and not facing 17 of them in Demon Hunter anymore is going to help with this card a lot.
But Pilot, how do you feel about this change?
I'm
Because
so
I know
happy. I was so
that
tired of Blobatar. Like, I love the Broxgar Demon Hunter, and I'm so sad that the correct one was the Blob with Elise, because it just was the right play, because then you just never die. And I'm so happy that that's going away.
yeah, well, it'll still see some play, and again, maybe 5% of decks, 10% of decks for something that needs it, and it makes sense. But it is not going to be in every game you play. It's not going to be copied a million times. I am so happy. Like, again, between this and Ziliax, I mean, the what's my favorite quote for one of things like that is we should have nuked it from the orbit. It was the only way to be sure. LanguageHacker, I know you're a control player. What are your thoughts on the Blobatar nerf?
No, agreed. I mean, as a control player, Demon Hunter matchups are. It's not like they're unwinnable, but they become a lot more interesting when they have the range of doing return policy with Fellow Hunter versus location, and Blob being pulled out of that still has the deck lean towards like the Broxcar game plan, but they're no longer that secure in having anti-aggression. I didn't mind Blob of Tar in most decks, but again, that's because I'm playing a slower deck. I know when I was playing faster stuff, it did feel like Blob of Tar immediately added 3 or 4 turns to the game.
Yes.
It's just, all right, well, I'm no longer killing them. Let's see if we can kill them later. So I think pushing it to 5 still leaves it as a defensive tool, but it doesn't. You now need something else to do in the meantime against the faster decks instead of just pointing it out and saying, all right, I'm safe now.
And used to be whenever you try to play anything, it was like you Blobatar, more Blobatar, Ziliax. And oh my god, it was so beautiful on Thursday not to see a single Ziliax and not to be like, hey, it's turn 8, I'm almost there. Well, they're full health. Oh well, what am I gonna do?
Agreed.
Yeah. Some other small changes. Creature of Madness is losing a health, going to a 1/1. Prescient Slither Drake, which is the 7-mana dragon that is really a 4-mana dragon in a dragon deck, is also losing a health. It's a 6/8 now. Stone Carver now says give another friendly minion +2/+2, so it can no longer buff itself. That's the warrior. Give a buff a damage friendly minion. Unleash the Crocodilus is going to 2 mana instead of 1. Ursine Maul is now just drawing a card, not drawing your highest cost card. Deja Vu is losing the mana reduction on the card that you copy, and Remnant of Rage is going from a 6/5 to a 5/4, which all seem fair with how much they were seeing played and some of the stuff that they were doing. Ursine Maul is probably one that stands out to where I can see why it was nerfed, and it's definitely a good card, and just kind of something to where they're like, well, people are going to be very tired of Gelbin constantly right away, and that kind of pulls that play pattern out.
What do you think, LanguageHacker, are these nerfs?
I think a lot of them are pretty warranted. And I understand that most of these are directed, if not all of them, are directed at things that are sticking around after the expansion. So a sort of preemptive, let's knock everything down to prepare for the expansion launch, so we don't have all the new stuff overshadowed, particularly on a rotational expansion where we have a lot of stuff coming out. We don't want every deck to be exactly what I was talking about. Let's just throw Elise in every single deck, and it'll probably see play. So I'm glad that they're rating some stuff in, not too early, but just before the expansion, and importantly after a month end. This happened like a couple days before month end. Ladder would be chaos.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, aside from Elise and Blob, all these other changes, I don't think there's going to be a lot of. I think they got rid of Elise. Pretty much, she's dead enough for play. But I think that Cataclysm is going to change things enough that we're not going to see a lot of old archetypes. There's very few archetypes that are carrying over with enough cards to a critical amounts of cards to continue forward. Dragon Warrior is one of them, and I think that changing the that card right there just prevents snowball games, because it was usually just play the location, coin out this guy, hit it. It's now a 12-12. How the hell did that happen? You lose the game. It was very snowbally. But outside of that, I think Cataclysm again, and we've asked for this, right? We've said, hey, we want the next set to be impactful. We want to play the new cards. There's nothing like, oh, hey, we're playing Dragon Warrior. I mean, we're playing Discover Hunter again. We're playing Blob of Tar, Death Knight, or Demon Hunter, whatever. So I like that they've done some preemptive things, even though this time I don't think they needed it as much, because it doesn't feel like it's going to be like that. But at the same point, I am for it. Let's go. Let's bring the power level down like they've been doing, and let's go forward and see how it is.
Yeah, I think all these cards that were slightly nudged, they're all still going to see play. Like, they still do good things in what they need in the decks that they're run in. They're just going to, not be as oppressive. A free 6/5 that drew 2 was a little much some games.
Yep.
So, and as Tito mentioned, they did have a Reddit post that talked about all the reverts that they're doing, as they typically do with rotation, and it did spell out what cards are being fully reverted, as well as some that are being partially reverted. Don't have that list in the show notes, but I think that that'll obviously also be in the patch notes when we get 35.0. You can find that online if you want. Community days are coming up March 10th through the 14th. There are community days. If you watch any Hearthstone stream, you can get packs. There are 8 total packs. It's 2 hours per drop, and it's been typically 2 packs per drop. So 8 hours over those 5 days will get you some packs. And then also with the new patch will be the pre-release brawl on March 10th. The pool of cards that we have to play with, we can play with all the Cataclysm cards across the time ways, event set and core set, and those are going to be the pre-rotation versions. So we'll still have some of the cards that are actually going to leave when the set goes live for event set and core set, but they will be in the Tavern Brawl, I think partly because of the weirdness that happens with this patch happening, but the core set changes on the next Tuesday, and it's funky like that. And then they are also giving everyone temporary access to the Deathwing Hero card for the duration of the event. So everyone's going to have that card for sure to play with. We do also have the list of banned cards. They're banning all of the legendary cards from across the timeways. They're banning the imbue cards that were in the mini set for Echoes of the Infinite. So Death Knight and Rogue imbue will not be in, as well as Twilight Time Hopper, Flux Revenant, Crusader Aura, Deja Vu, and Bob will all be banned for the pre-release brawl. So an interesting list of cards that they kind of decided to ban, but I like the idea of it, just to make sure that we don't find that one legendary that's broken from Timeways and everyone just plays that. Because I could see something like Farseer Woe in a very limited pool being really goofy.
That sound you just heard was Jay Alexander swearing up a storm. I like that they're doing this. In fact, because remember what happened last time? They banned all the quests on 12 hours. They're trying to preemptive do this thing. They're like, hey, we need to let you play with old cards so you can play, but we can also make it so that way you can still build decks and not play the stupid broken things like Dragon Warrior was. There was a warrior that was dummy warrior was obnoxious. Oh, yeah. And stuff like that. So that's not the spirit of the pre-release brawl. The pre-release brawl is open your cards, play with them, win more cards. And if you don't have the cards, you didn't buy bundles, yeah, you can win some. But let's not make it so it's like a miserable fest of, oh my god, it's Blob of Tar, Demon Hunter for the rest. Oh god, that sucks. So I like these changes. It's very, very smart. What do you think there, Mr. Hacker?
Yeah, agreed. The Deathwing is a very nice touch as well, because I know one of the not issues, but one of the drawbacks of how the brawl is implemented is you're playing with cards that you have opened with those pre-release packs, and a lot of the times you don't have these build around legendaries. So the fact that we have Deathwing, which actually fits into all of these different peril decks, I think it's an excellent way to push this, and it'll I don't know if they want to like have this every expansion where there's always a neutral that works in a bunch of different decks that kind of a build around. Might be too much every expansion, but having it every now and then I think is very helpful to push actual enjoyment of the game with the new cards. So
And I think that I think they've gotten away from having the all powerful neutrals, and they've been moving away from that. We have less Elises, like all the last 3 sets, including this set. I don't think we have anything like that. I mean, they can still nuke Blackhorn. I don't think he was killed enough, but I didn't see him at all on Thursday, and I didn't see any dirty rats. Of course, I didn't run into Tic Tac, but you know, um, yeah, no, I like where they're going with these neutrals, and Deathwing, yeah, that's the one to play. And on a side jag, um, again, we're still not fans of the Darkmoon Fair. It's predatory. I wish they did something different. Just sell us the things. But oh my god, the Deathwing skin was they've outdone themselves with that. I just wish they would sell it to us because I am nowhere going near that. Did you play any? Did you equip that at all, Mr. Hacker?
I did. I wanted to see how it felt. I'm also not a fan of that. It's not that I don't mind that they're monetizing the game that way. It's just that it doesn't feel great. And like you said, if it was a standalone item, I would absolutely go for it. I did equip it, and it felt it gave me mixed emotions because on one side, it's really cool from being a fan of this Warcraft universe to seeing that come in. It actually looks so cool. Like that's what I want out of a fantasy sort of game where I'm still playing cards and doing strategy stuff, but having that sort of visual effect is so eye-capturing, for better or for worse, because I do find it really cool, but I can also see how it can pull away from the game for people who are trying to focus on things and stuff keeps like popping up in your face. So I loved it. I don't know if it's a good thing to have everything this sort of hyped up, or perhaps having an option to turn off your opponent. I do want to point out that it can be very distracting for some people, but I do think that they've outdone themselves with not only the hero, all those signature cards look so beautiful, and even not the signature cards, the art has just been over and over and over again on point. So hats off to all of that stuff.
I do have a small complaint about the signature cards, and it's not like a real complaint, but there's a couple signature cards that look like minions. So it's like the Devastate looks like a minion. There's another one that looks like a minion. So I'm looking at it in my hand and I'm like, oh, it's a spell. Wait, that's not a minion to play. And that's something to get over real quick. But like it just felt like, well, is that really a spell? No, it looks like a big giant flaming fire elemental or something like that. Small complaint, small nitpick. I wish they kind of did something a little different, but you're right. The cards are amazing. I like the initial ones. I like the black and white ones. I wish they would do something like that, but they got so much negative feedback on them. Like, I think they look kind of cool. But yeah, whatever. Pylet, any thoughts on those?
I was gonna say a couple things. One, that sounds like an issue for someone who doesn't read the cards more than anything. Reading the card explains the card, as Tito and I talk about multiple times each night we play BGs. Yeah, I do think that if they brought back the idea of that first one and did the text changes like they've done with the newer ones, like if you take the text off of those original black and white ones, I think people would be a lot happier and really show off the card art. I had another thought and I totally forget what it was. Oh, yeah, I like how they're giving us Deathwing, one, because it's such a big iconic thing for the set, and I think that they would have gotten a lot of pushback if they didn't. And it is something that I think that they've looked at more, because I forget which set it was. I want to say is Emerald Dream, where there is a big legendary that no one could play because it was the level 1 reward track, and it was one that people wanted to experiment with, and I think it's Emerald Dream because I think it was Neralex. And people were like, I want to do things with this and try this out, and nobody could because you literally couldn't open it in packs because it was the immediate one we got for the start of the expansion on the rewards track. So I think they've been evaluating that a little bit more closely, and they've also changed some of that with the reward track to where, I think for on Guro we got a random quest. For the last one we got a random Fabled card. So then there's not a card that's locked until the reward tracks happen, but then they can be like, okay, this is a card we need in the brawl for everybody. Here you go.
But is Deathwing the first card we get in the track?
We have not gotten that information yet. I don't think. I
I
don't think
almost,
they
I
have
almost,
the track refresh out there
I can
yet.
almost guarantee. Like, if I was a betting man, I would say yes, that's going to be the first card we get because they want everybody to have it. They want people to play it, and that's probably why they gave it to us for free for the Tavern Brawl. So
I don't think that they've done the post with the track refresh yet, but there's been a lot of news in the past couple weeks, so
it's been hard to keep track.
I do not see it on the news website yet, so that should be coming this week. Probably tomorrow with patch notes, or Tuesday with patch notes normally.
I will say that they gave us they gave us a lot of information in a bunch of posts when Cataclysm launched, and they were all really good, but when I tried to go back to find that information, it wasn't as good. Like, I could find they had a nice big link to the Cataclysm rally point, but it was like to find the other things, especially going through the website, it was difficult. Like, I was trying to find like the little chart that had when the events were going to be and other things, and it was kind of, and I go other places, they're still promoting across the timeways. So I really think they need somebody that's like out there doing like, hey, make sure everything on the social media, not even social media, the website itself points to everything you want to, because I think they did a really good job in all the posts they did, giving us all the information, spreading it out, telling us everything we need to know. But then I was like, well, now I can't find it. Where is it? So just a small note. I hope they kind of like look at that. And but yeah, it was great.
Yeah, and then one last little bit of news, as was already alluded to by someone on the podcast playing in it. The winter playoffs are this upcoming weekend. There will be Swiss rounds that are not broadcast on Friday and Saturday, and then they will be broadcasting on Sunday for all three regions. They'll be broadcasting the top 8. That starts at 12 a.m. Pacific on Sunday morning if you're feeling that ambitious. Probably with APAC, and then as they'll go through as each region goes live. There are drops for that, and that'll be streamed on the Twitch and YouTube channel for Hearthstone.
Just to be clear, that was LanguageHacker, not me, that made it. So Hacker, what do you bring? Hacker, what are you bringing?
No idea. I mean, with all the nerfs and reverts, the best we can do right now is Theorycraft until Tuesday comes out, and then it will be a playoff that rewards preparation because of how large of an impact it's going to have on the meta. Because a lot of the cards that were nerfed that are now being reverted were mostly for older decks. So there's going to be a huge like short list of old decks that you have to revisit and see if A, they're playable in the meta, and B, well, there's been a bunch of new cards since this got nerfed. Like, how do we change that deck? So there's a lot of groundwork that needs to be done if you want to be as prepared as possible. Alternatively, you just wait to see how the meta develops and then just pick some of the best contenders and play them well. So I have no idea what I'm going to bring.
But are you excited? You think you feel like you got a good chance right now?
Yeah, I think one of my strengths is more of line of building. Not, I mean, I think I play well as well, but I look for edges in lineups, which may be difficult if everyone's scrambling and just submits anything. But I think we'll probably have a meta settle by the time deck lists have to be submitted on Thursday or Friday or whatever. So there'll be time to adapt to how the meta evolves. Excited.
I'm a little sad for you though, because you don't really have time to probably play the Theorycrafting Brawl. It's kind of like overlapping things that are.
I don't even think I have time to do the amount of prep I would like to do for this. So we'll see. Maybe the best course of action is just do the Theorycrafting Brawl and relax.
Going with vibes.
Take someone else's homework.
You could get one of those practice groups where they all bring the same deck, so you just be like, "Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, what are the decks we're bringing? Yeah, fantastic.
Great, perfect, thank you." No, we'll see. I'll play a bit of ladder, but a lot of lineups in this sort of short window preparation tournaments, it is not to be funny, it's sort of a vibes check. Like, how does it feel, and how do you feel about other people bringing what you think they're going to bring? Yeah.
Now, with something like this, do you think you could take like would you be more apt to taking some risky kind of brings? Like, hey, I don't know what's going on, so no one's going to expect me to bring Rycleaver Hunter. Let's go.
That would probably not make the short list, but this is the exact scenario where taking risks can be helpful. And I don't know if you've seen some of the past lineups I've submitted over the years in Grandmasters, where I'm bringing like 6 watch posts, 2 neophytes. I brought Mukla and every day. I brought some really wacky stuff, so I wouldn't bet against me.
Why do you think you became one of my favorite streamers?
I don't try amalgam decks.
Do we have amalgam? We do have an amalgam, right? We still have amalgams.
Yeah, I looked into it because they're reverting some of the stuff that went into like amalgam Death Knight, but and amalgam Warlock. But again, until it happens, it's hard to say if it'll fit.
That's fair. All right, Pylet, we got any other news?
Nope, that's it.
All right. So we're going to start talking about theory crafting. And so Pylet was able to actually do a little theory crafting for about 20 minutes at the end of the night. But you did miss a lot of the things. So I think we'll have Pylet, kind of lead this section. And we'll go from there. But before we could do LanguageHacker, what were your thoughts of this this whole theory crafting event, and how do you think it compared to like previous ones?
I think this is one of the most memorable ones, not just because of the recency bias, obviously, but because it actually felt good. I wasn't, for multiple reasons. One, and we alluded to this earlier, I think each of us individually, we didn't see a lot of the old archetypes that have been played up until now. And I think almost all of them, if not all of them, are going to be non-existent post-rotation. So when we have a lot of sets rotating, the impact of the new set coming in is large. But we've frequently had in the past, even with rotation, a lot of archetypes surviving that. That's not the case here, except for like Dragon Warrior. So everything power level wise actually felt consistent. There weren't particular decks I ran up against that just immediately blew everything out of the water, and then Theory Crafting ladder devolved into just half the people playing that deck. I was constantly playing a variety of classes, different archetypes, and it actually felt that there was some homogeneous feelings when Deathwing would come down, but I still think that the heralding in the different decks still lent itself to a unique experience when I was playing against them, because of just by virtue of how the heralding is different for each of the classes, like Shaman getting the mini Flame Tongue effect, Demon Hunter getting the attack effect. It still felt different enough that the play experience is different. So it just felt good. I felt like I was in a new world, learning new stuff, instead of having to deal with Elise on 4 and Blob on 4 every game. Felt good.
Yeah, and I thought the community team did an absolutely fantastic job this time around. Not that they don't usually do it, but it felt really, really good this time. I think everyone felt seen and heard, and it was good that way. And again, with Deathwing, like you said, I don't feel like it's going to be Ziliax. Like, it does feel like it impacts the game at the end, but I didn't have that feeling of, oh, here we go Ziliax again, or here we go Deathwing again. And it comes down late enough, and depends on how your game went, on how strong it is, and all that. So I'm hopeful that this is not the next Sire Denathrius, the next whatever. But overall, I mean, and also it didn't feel like the game was over when it was played. It was a good swing play, but you had the ability to come back, and you had the ability to challenge the board and recover. So I feel like that it's a really strong card. But I was worried looking at, it can do all these things, but it feels pretty good.
I will note that the one thing I'm not concerned about, but one thing I would probably want to look at after we get, not pre-release, I mean post-release, after a week or two after we get some stats, I do like that the armor that the Deathwing gains is 12, in line with how, Deathwing has historically been 12-12 in almost all of his iterations, if not all of them. So I do appreciate that sort of like flavor, but the 12 armor might be a bit much in terms of like a hero board swing, because I think that's the most on any hero we've had in the past. We've seen like 10 on Rikara, but I mean, 10 versus 12, it just seems like a bit much. So maybe it's not going to feel like Zilliax, but perhaps it's a little too stabilizing.
Yeah, I can agree with that. 100%.
Rikara was a buff too. It was 5, and then they buffed it to 10.
Yeah. Again, not a gripe, just something to think about.
Yep.
All right, Pilot. Well, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Kind of. I didn't get to, as Tito said, didn't get to play a lot. It was kind of last minute that I was able to jump in with one of the kind of extra patron accounts. And I had dress rehearsal that night because of the show weekend, so I got home early enough to get it, launched and play for a couple hours. Kind of threw some things together that I found. I actually don't think I faced against. I don't think I saw a Deathwing, because most of my games were over before that happened. Partly just because I found faster decks that I wanted to test out and killed them first. And then the games I tried playing some slower stuff, there were a lot of other shenanigans going on. I had a turn 4 instant multiverse played against me that summoned an Omen. I lost that game. It did not go well. So I forget who did that to me, but there was no coming back from that one. But yeah, it was fun. I wish I could have played more. But there's definitely a lot of stuff. There's that first deck I put together, I had to look through. I'm like, do I have enough new cards in this? And it was like 16 new cards. I'm like, oh, I'm plenty fine on any of these decks that I'm looking at. There's a lot of new stuff that was seeing a lot of play.
Yeah,
so
I think this was one of the expansions where a lot of the new cards were very good at slotting in. Obviously with the packages, like the heralding packages, but even outside of that, it felt like a lot of classes had access to some thing that was reasonable, which could be part of the fact that we have rotation, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It's good that new cards that come in, you're like, yeah, I'll play this in the deck, sure. Not like, I don't know.
Yes.
You mean not like quests or imbue?
I mean, so for theory crafting purposes, probably. But I feel like didn't quests see like a decent amount of play in the theory crafting? Not all of them,
absolutely.
Obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think it's definitely a different vibe, I think.
Yeah, it is a different vibe for sure.
Yeah. So what are some decks that you played that stood out?
But do you want to go by class? Because I think that'll give us a little focus, because otherwise I don't think we'll have because I think both LanguageHacker and I played a ton of classes, right?
I ran out of time. I only played like 3 or 4.
So we can. And I've got 5 questions kind of outlined in the show notes, but we can go by class or just kind of bounce around.
Just whatever you want. I apologize. I said Pilot. I said after before the show. I said, yeah, Pilot, you run the segment. Now I know I tend to like over assert myself in time. So please take it away.
Yeah, I know you've been busy all weekend, so go ahead and put this together and run it. But so we'll kind of bounce through some decks that stood out, some stuff that surprised us, some that weren't as good as we expected, things that we think get better, get worse, things like that once we get out of theory crafting. And anything that doesn't slot into that, feel free to chime in wherever they fall at. So what are decks that stood out, either power level or enjoyment or both? Tito?
I can say that power level Druid feels very good on multiple levels. At least it felt good to me. The Colossal felt much better than I thought in the initial looking at it, because it comes down, you can usually get that down on turn 5, maybe turn 4. And it can really, I don't feel like it's a game winning play, but it can definitely pressure your opponent in favor of you developing behind it and then just keeping them on the back foot. And by the time they've dealt with that, you now have bigger threats and other threats, and it just felt like a really, really good card. Uh, Megasa ran me over with a aggro druid. Like it wasn't even. She apologized to me afterwards. Like she's like, "I'm sorry, I'm playing aggro." I'm like, "Psh, yeah, but oh yeah, it was rough. Like it was like literally like 10 seconds. I was like, "What just happened to me?" The token druid feels really good. Uh, I'm looking forward to playing some druid. So that's my first take. LanguageHacker, what's the first deck or the first class or deck that really comes to mind for you?
I mean, the first one I tried to put together was like a quest druid, but that was just like a continuity from one or two Theorycraftings ago when I was trying to make it the quest work, and there was not enough stuff there. And there's like kind of enough stuff there to make it work now, but it felt inconsistent. And I spent a lot of time trying to make that work. But in general, all of the Deathwing decks just feel like they have proactive things to do, and not just the Deathwing decks, but just because that's one of the common elements. And further than that, the fact that there's so much stuff to do for all these classes, topped with so many iconic removal cards getting cut now, or like rotated, cut, whatever. Almost every matchup felt board centric, and the Colossals, there wasn't just like a Colossal comes down and then it immediately gets removed. A lot of the time it was just like you need to be on board, because when that Colossal comes down, because there's not a lot of effective reactive tools, with some exceptions, that sometimes just wins the game. Stuff coming down and killing you after, which I know people have been asking for board fighting a lot. Not just I build a board, they brawl, I build a board, they Psychic Stream, I build a board, they play Shadow Rape Rando and whatever. It doesn't really happen that much. Like Priest has one board clear that is like slightly conditional, and Warrior has like also a conditional 3 minion kill thing with the something freeze. So it just was a battle for the board, but not toned down like Arena. Because I know some people are just like, I don't want to just play Arena, stuff on curve and the uninteresting things. Still felt back and forth. It just felt more meaningful or purposeful board development, as opposed to before.
Yeah, and it wasn't so you had to get rid of certain minions. It wasn't just like you had to get rid of the. Do I get rid of the colossal arms? Do I try to get rid of the colossal? There was a lot of decisions to be made, and I will say this is probably the set. Maybe I'm wrong because I haven't been playing at the level that you have, Mr. Hacker, but it feels like you really have to be paying attention to position a lot more with a lot of these decks than you do normally, because it's like the Warlock, you have to not only position but order and position, and there's just other things that just position really mattered.
The Shaman Flame Tongue shuffling as well. Like there's a lot of stuff. I think it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little while since we've had to care too much about that. We had Domino Effect that taught everyone to kind of do that again, but it's been a while since we've had stuff that we're doing that cares about where we put the stuff as much.
Mm-hmm.
And the legendary dragon in Druid, to stay on Druid, we looked at it, was like you have to play 25 mana while this is in your hand to activate it. It did not feel hard. And that card really felt awesome when you played it. It was like you played it and then you're like, what do I have in the cornucopia of 1 mana dragons that I get to play? And sometimes you get that dragon that says, play it, and for the number of dragons in your hands, kill that many minions. And, oh my god, that's your board clear before you then drop a bunch of other minions. And if you can play the one that summons it with doubles the stats and drops them in your hand, and Dragon Druid felt really fun. I know we already said that, but no, I'm very excited about the things we can do in Druid. I'm not sure if by the end of the year I may be a Druid main, but probably not. Okay.
No, Tic Tac was spending a lot of time. I mean, he was only playing Priest, but I know he ended up settling on which I tried as well, an imbue centric priest, still running like 50 new cards or something. Because the pool of cards is now so much more limited, you have a much better idea of what you're going to be offered, and the imbue pool is looking really good for priest. So that may or may not be concerning if that becomes popular and or good. But even with the pool being good, I felt like I was just doing so many good things. And then the one thing the priest doesn't have is consistent kill potential. There is some stuff you can do with the new like 7-mana Alexstrasza. Set your health to 15. When you heal back up to full, your opponent takes 15 damage. So there is some lethality there, but it's not like consistent or super combo oriented. So you can still control the board a lot. And then Deathwing came down and just punched me to death 3 or 4 turns in a row. That, like, I think that's healthy. You can still control the board or like be ahead because you have this consistent sort of imbue pool, but it didn't feel overwhelming because you were still just dying sometimes after that, because you don't, like, you need to be able to kill on top of having your control tools. So that felt good, I think.
I took Tic Tac's control, quest control, imbue priest. I played one game with it. That was the game they put me on the mainstream. And I have no idea how to play this deck. And I'm like, you're not supposed to concede. I had a patron guy, so I could have conceded, but I try to stay within the spirit of it. So we went all the way. I was all the way out of cards, and I'm doing the Trump SC thing, and I'm just like hero powering and hoping to get something good, and staying in the game. And of course they had 30 armor and 30 health or whatever, as I believe they were a warrior. And we didn't get there. It was like the one game I play against control priest. It just happened to be the one that they pulled me on. It's like, you got to be kidding me. But yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like there's potential there. And all these decks we're talking about, none of them are refined yet. We're just kind of, throwing some stats out, throwing some things out there, seeing what works, stealing other people's decks. Clark Hellstream had posted a bunch of decks in the Theorycrafting Discord, and I took a bunch of them and played them. And I said, "Hey, I've been playing a lot of your decks." He's like, "Are even good because they've sucked for me." But no, but but that's how it goes, right? What else did you like there, LanguageHacker?
I got to play I think 3 or 4 classes. I tried to make a Demon Hunter work as well, with so many changes to cards or changes to the deck over the course of an hour or two. I was trying to make some super cycle heavy Broxigar kill deck. I try to make a more spell centric thing because there's some fell synergies that have come out. I try to make a full Herald deck, and all of them felt not perfect, which I think is kind of what you want. You want to have to tinker and figure stuff out. So it still felt promising and strong, like the Demon Hunter package, but it didn't feel like nothing I played as or against felt oppressive or overwhelming. But,
I played some of JT Snow's decks for Demon Hunter, and a couple of them felt pretty good. But it's again, so what you just said really kind of resonates, right? It doesn't feel like this expansion has packages that either the class lives or dies by. And it's not like, hey, this package didn't hit, I guess we're not playing mage this time around. Or maybe Pylet still will and everyone else won't. But so it kind of felt that way. It felt really diverse, and it was you had a lot of choices. And I played the fell package. I wasn't even really kind of aware. It wasn't even on my radar with playing the fell stuff, but it was fun. Demon Hunter was good. What did you think of Death Knight? Did you play? I'm assuming you played a little bit of Death Knight.
I didn't until the very later part of my stream. I only got I had a good chunk of time in, but I didn't get to play as many different things as I'd like. I only happened across Death Knight when Tic Tac came by and he said that that Death Knights were doing some crazy stuff. I had built a bunch of decks beforehand. I just didn't have time to play them. The Death Knight felt pretty solid. It felt slow, but I don't know how consistent it is at closing out games. It did feel pretty strong when you do get Onyxia down. And I felt, again, I hadn't faced it, or I didn't even actually get to play Onyxia at all. But I had heard that could be a possible pain point if it becomes like the sort of unkillable generator. But I think all the colossals are like that. Like if you can't remove a thing, then you end up dying. So it might not be unique to Death Knight. It just might be the way that it's propagated in Death Knight, that people might have been like, ooh, they're gaining health and stuff. But even if they weren't, if the thing is sticking, you're probably dying.
Yeah, that was so normally there's always like one or two decks that pick up in a theory crafting that people start playing that almost feel like it becomes like the meta dominator or whatever like that. And early on, a lot of people were like, "Oh, here comes the Death Knight deck again," but it didn't really seem to last. It seemed really good, but I barely played any Death Knight. I think I played like 3 or 4 games with it towards the end of the day. Um, but yeah, I think Onyxia felt fine. It's definitely you have to think about it differently. Like when you have games like that where it's like, well, I have to play minions that cost health, and how do I do this and all that. It's like a different approach to your turns. I think that's interesting and fun.
Well, I will say that the Questor deck, even though I didn't in the end, it didn't feel like the strongest or anything. It was very like feast or famine based on how draws play out. The quest reward, buffing the colossal felt so good because the weapon swing buffs each of the appendages, and the appendages then pass that buff on to the main guy. Anytime that happened, I did win. But the colossal itself just also seems standalone. It just slots into a lot of things. It's a nice big thing to either, it can be defensive or offensive too, because if your opponent leaves it up for a turn, it can get out of hand, especially if you taunt some pieces.
What did you think about the herald mechanic itself, as far as not the end result of like the appendages being big and whatnot, but like you play a herald and then you get a little tentacle or you get a little soldier and it does the things. How you felt that really kind of worked as far as the early game, the mid game, because like we've had similar things like imbue like that. Do you feel like we had good value for the cost, and did it feel good? How did you think about that?
I did like it felt like a mini, like a snack mechanic, like a snack portion of the mechanic, which I think was good because it also leads you to learn about it as you go through it if you haven't faced it before. But also having a growing effect, I think, is nice because it is some sense of scaling just as time goes on through the game when you're playing your cards. One thing that did catch me off guard, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing yet, but maybe if it feels too strong, could be toned down. The like the numbers of the heralding going up, because a lot of the minions that are summoned, let me use the shaman as an example. The first set of, like, the first soldier that's summoned is a 1/2, the second level is a 2/4, and the third level is a 4/8. So it looks like it's just the stats are doubling as they go up. It felt a little high to me, but it's again just a very small sample size, and it was just sort of a feels based thing. So I feel like if they were linear, like 1/2, 2/4, 3/6, it would be more stable. But again, I don't know if that's actually a bad thing that it scales faster, because it will mean that games end and they're not going to be drawn on too long.
Yeah, because it's still what, 4 or 5 heralds in before you get to the last stage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it definitely, I could see that feeling, especially if you play like a 2-mana herald card on turn 8 or turn 9 to get that, and still do a bunch of other stuff. I could definitely see that. I didn't play enough to run into it, but definitely a lot to keep track of with that. And sometimes you think that you're one off from where it actually is.
Yeah, that'll take
some
getting used to.
If you're wondering why Pylet all of a sudden got garbled, is because his cat just knocked his mic over.
Yeah,
I did like the kind of decision points you have to make with your colossals sometimes, where it's like, okay, I haven't got the full herald out yet. Do I play the colossal? Do I try to stall until I can get the thing? It doesn't matter and all that. So I did kind of like that dynamic of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, traction also felt a little, not overwhelming, but when this is always going to happen no matter what the sort of progression is of the mechanic coming in, but it felt like when you had such a high density of heralding happening early into Atraxian and then like a turn 7 Deathwing, you're like, oh, okay, fine, I'll go on to the next game.
Yeah.
All right, I get it. But I don't know if you can really not balance it. I don't know if you can fine tune that to a point where it feels more reasonable, because like no matter what, if your opponent has like all the good cards in a row, you're probably going to die no matter what the mechanic is or what expansion we're talking about. So I think that's just more of a, that game didn't feel good, but not that the mechanic doesn't feel good or how it progressed.
So what other decks did you try or see that really kind of sparked your interest?
It's a lot of Burn Mage, which I initially thought, oh, it's not going to be that strong. I don't think they got that many tools. And no, it kills you.
Yep.
It does do that without heralding, which I think is nice that we have. It's not always nice to have a mechanic that you can't have in every class, but I think it's fine if there's some variety. But still, the fact that other like non-Deathwing classes are still having things to do was good. I didn't play much of that myself, but I played against enough of it that it felt reasonable. I tried a bit of Warrior heralding, but I didn't get many games in on it. I faced quite a few of them as well, and it did feel quite strong. But I think a lot of stuff just felt strong as the game went on. Like power level felt pretty consistent across decks. Most of the Herald decks felt pretty in line with each other. Because I'm trying to think back, and a lot of the times I was like, yeah, I don't know, they played Rag and they had heralded a bunch, and it just felt strong. But if I think about all the other games, whenever they heralded a bunch and then played their respective Colossals, it felt strong, which is kind of that's the point. That's good that it's consistent across all the decks. So at least from what we saw, or what I saw in Theorycrafting. So nothing stood out to me as like too much, but everything felt sort of good to play against or as.
One of the first games I played was the second game I played was against somebody named Kubu.
Mm-hmm.
And they played this warrior. Did you play against the patron warrior?
I played against one or two, yeah. That was interesting.
And I actually, so I had a pretty good win with that later on in the day. So there's this new card that works kind of like Patron, where every time it gets damaged, it makes a copy of it. But it also has a death rattle that deals 2 damage to a minion. So you basically, 2 damage to an enemy, not a minion, an enemy. That's a big difference. That will probably be changed to minion at some point. But basically, you stagger out you make sure that there's at least some kind of staggering between the health, and then you play something like Shellnado or deal 1 damage to everything or whatever, and then it's just pew, 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 pew. And it is a fun deck. I don't know if it'll be good, but it felt good when it went off. And yeah, it just it was an interesting approach. I was like, I did not see this coming at all. I didn't even know this card that was the main focus of this deck was a card, and here it is, game 2 of Theorycrafting, and like we're seeing it. So I saw that. Rogue feels fine. I mean, Rogue seems like it's going to be pretty good. It definitely has a roguey feel to it. Like it's like, hey, they rolled the nuts. What are you going to do? Sinestro feels very powerful. Goes really well with the imbue because it's like minions versus spells or whatever like that. So there's like you can probably tinker with that till you get the right balance of generation. I never saw the Mage Colossal once. I think that was the only Colossal I didn't see.
Yeah, same.
I wanted to because the signature art is so good, but I didn't have time or the brain power to make a deck for that at the end of the night.
There's just so much to do.
Yeah, Dragon Hunter felt really good. Oh, I didn't play it, but played against it, and Dragon Hunter looked really good. There were a couple other Pylet. So reading the card explains the card, which is our latest mantra. So a lot of times you just take a deck and you play it, right? It's during Theorycrafting, you're like, all right, let's try this sucker out. And you're not going to sit there and investigate it. You got to get out there. You're streaming, but play it. So I picked up a Quest Hunter, and I played. I'm like, Quest Hunter, great, let's go. And it, like on turn 7, I was like, oh, this is that quest.
Oh, I see.
Because it was the TikTok quest, and I was like, wait, what's going on here. And then the next game, I figured it out, and we did much better. But that game, I was like, what the? I don't understand what's going on here.
He was like 10 beasts in and wondering why he doesn't have a quest tick yet.
Yeah, I was like, what's going on? Paladin felt pretty strong, but it also felt like it has the potential. Like it feels really strong if it can do the things, and I think it felt bad if it doesn't. So I think that that deck is going to take some refinement, and I think it has a potential, but it also has the potential to not be potential. So I don't know where that's going to end up, but that felt fun and interesting, and I don't think it's a lot of these decks didn't, even though Herald is a thing where you play the Heralds and all that. I felt a lot of these decks didn't feel like Hearthstone. It felt like there was a little bit more choices, a little more nuance, and it wasn't just like, hey, you play this, play this, play this in this order, and then turn 7 you get there. Maybe I'm wrong, but it felt like there was a lot of decks out there that required a lot more decision and choices, and like Paladin was definitely one of them. That is like, you can't just play cards in order, because then you're just not going to end up with what you need. Yeah.
The shaman one too, because of the flame tongue math. If I should say flame tongue, positional based buffing that goes on there. You can actually use your resources in different orders with the expectation that you're going to herald more later, or realizing that, okay, I can't wait, I just need to clear this board now because this person's killing me. So it did feel that some of them had the flexibility to change their game plan like that. And I do think I agree, Paladin did feel like it is a little less flexible in the package that they did receive. But I didn't feel like that was the case for most of the other classes.
I had one game. So what did you think? Well, hold on, before I get to that, what did you think of Warlock?
I did forget about Warlock. I felt a little soured playing against it, just because the way that their heralding works is synergistic with death rattles, right? Particularly eggs. And I've played enough egg warlocks that before the Theorycrafting that I didn't really want to just queue it up and someone plays egg bearer on 2, Kalos on 3, and then just eats it until it makes a 20/20. And I look at it and I'm like, I know that's what we're gonna see. I just wanted to, like, if you build it without the eggs so we can play a longer game. So I just don't want eggs anymore, or I don't want that egg. I tried the new egg a lot in a lot of different decks, and it was like, okay. And the idea behind the warlock thing is cool, especially like stealing your minion and then eating it. I just didn't enjoy it because people kept playing Egg of Kalos, and I was like, we've been playing that already. Do something else.
I had one game. I was playing Rogue against a against a Herald Cho'Gall Warlock, and I had the dragon that if you play it, it is basically asynchronous vanish. It sends all their minions back to their hand. So I was like, they had the thing. I'm like, watch this. I played it. I'm like feeling really good, but it was like the 10th or 11th card. So what happens is, if you send a minion back to their hand, but it doesn't go in their hand, that triggers the death rattle if they have a death rattle. So I did that and gave them a free 20/20. That game did not go well.
It happens.
Ugh. And that, to be fair, isn't read the card, explains the card. That is oh yeah, that's a rule that happens, right?
Yep.
Because I was thinking, I'm like, I'm just gonna send it back to the hand, and then it's just gonna be destroyed. It will be good. I was like, oh no, that's not what's happening. That's not what's happening at all.
Yeah.
Yep. I definitely, in the little bit of time I got to play, I took the low-hanging fruit for good decks. I played some of the Dragon Hunter. 6 mana, 8/8 deal 8 is really good. Who knew? And yeah, I played the Burn Mage first, and that was the first game I played, and I switched over to a different deck because it felt unfair against kind of what I was playing against, because I've ran into someone trying to play around with like a Herald, Demon Hunter or something, and I just ran them over. I had so much damage in hand so early because I played the 4-mana legendary on 4. I had buffed something. I think I buffed an Arcane Barrage. And then got the copy elemental on board, and it felt unfair. I'm like, I'm gonna put this aside for a little bit and not do this for a bit. I'll come back to it later. And it does a lot of damage. It does a lot of things that I want to do in Mage, so I'm very excited for that deck.
All right, so Hacker and Pylet. I'll start with Pylet. So I'm assuming this is the deck you're talking about, but which class or deck did you want to go back to? You're like, all right, it's Theorycrafting, let's go do other things. But what do I want to come back to? Like, I want to come back to playing this.
Mage for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be good. I kept trying to come back to the Herald Demon Hunter also, just because I played a couple iterations of it, and it felt almost there, but I didn't have enough time to tinker with it. And it feels like that's a very open-ended deck of what packages you put around it. I was playing one that JT Stowe had posted in our Discord that was fell base with the location that summons the Naga legendary, and it did okay things. And there are some games where they played a little bit slower and I was able to get there. Games that they did had a big turn 4, turn 5, then I just got run over. So it definitely needs some refinement, but it was interesting enough that I kept thinking about it when I was playing other games.
How about yourself, Mr. Hacker?
Death Knight. I had a couple of visions on how to build it out, and I didn't get to tinker with it much because I was just enjoying the experience with the decks that I was playing, because all the games actually felt different because I was constantly up against different archetypes and decks and game plans. So I just didn't get to go through as many decks as I would have liked, and Death Knight was one that I enjoyed. So that's something I'd go back to.
I just realized I never saw the Hunter Colossal either.
Which
The
was
one with 99.
Oh,
The
yeah.
99 edition.
I saw it once, but I happened to kill them. Yeah.
I kept wanting to go back to Druid, and it just because it felt like it was a lot of stats, and it just felt kind of gross sometimes when you're just like I had somebody at 30, and I pulled a 29-18 Briar Spawn out of my deck, and I had another one on board, and we just did all the things. It felt really powerful and stuff like that. I realized also, listening to you guys, I approach theory crafting a little different. You guys are like thinking about decks and how you can tinker with them and make them better. I'm just grabbing things. I'm like, I want to play the things, and I just maybe occasionally I'll be like, oh, it'd be really cool if we could put this card in and do this, but I'm not thinking about like making decks better. I'm just thinking about, let's play some things, let's see the big things happen, and then let's move on to the next deck and let's see what that does. And I'm more fact finding than refinement on those things. So a little different approach, I think. But I just wanted to all right, I tried to make it a habit of, I play that deck 3 times or 4 times in a row. I had one point where I was like, I'm not doing a giveaway until I get Varanoth to buff the game. We win a game where we play Varanoth and he is the victor. Like, the reason why we won is because of that, and we got there. That card is weird. I love that card. I don't think it's going to be good, but I think I'm going to be playing it a lot, which that's me, I guess. That's probably my new Rycleaver, maybe. I don't know. Because they're all the same cards, right? Rycleaver, Black Rock and Roll, Varanoth. They're all the same cards. They're all cards that feel like they should be real powerful, do something good, but they just don't get there because it's just not fast enough. It doesn't do it. How many times did you ever play Rock and Roll Warrior and you're like, oh, I got these gigantic minions? So like, how the hell did I lose this game? I had a 40-88 on board, yet I still lost. What happened? It's just that's how the game works.
You got to trench stalker them.
Yes. Yes,
oh
that is
gosh,
that.
I forgot about that card.
Did you play any Varanoth? What did you think of that card? See any of them?
Is that the if you have 100 mana cost?
Yes.
Yes. It was played against me once, and I think I lost like 2 or 3 turns later. I prioritized trying to kill them. Actually, I don't even remember. I remember they played it, and I'm like, "Ugh." So I either killed them 2 turns after, or I didn't, and then I died immediately. But it is a kind of interesting concept. I don't think it's a bad thing to have cards like that. You want interesting mechanics, even if they're not like powerful or not, because like when it hits, you're like, all right, well, I have to play this game differently now. I don't remember what I was playing, but I wasn't planning on taking. I wasn't planning on killing them very quickly, and then I was like, well, I mean, my game plan is not going to exist in 2 turns, so.
What about yourself, Pylet? Did you try it or play against it?
I did play a little bit. I think it was in the Krona deck that you sent me, the Druid deck.
Yes.
And I don't know how much difference it made, but it was fun. I did see Clark had quite the clip of hitting, what is it? Divergence? Whatever it is that splits the minion
Yes.
in
Divergence.
half,
Wow.
and hit Virenov on that. So got to play 2 of them for 3 mana and was pulling 20 30s out of the deck and whatnot. It was a goofy clip. It sounds like they got it to work once and retired the deck because it finally worked after losing a bunch. But it was totally worth it. So it was very much Tito. That's very much a you deck. That's something that you would attempt to do.
Will do, yes. So one thing I didn't realize. So, Hacker, you guys know I played a lot of copy Chrono Druid. In fact, I was probably played the most copy Chrono Druid out of anybody out there because everyone else was like, "No, this deck's better without Chrono." But it was just too much fun for me. I loved it. I found out on Thursday there is a card that reverses the order of your deck, and I did not know that. I was like, "Hey, I didn't even see this card in the set." They're like, "This is not from the set." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I could have been playing this the whole time."
Timeless causality?
Yes.
Don't get me wrong.
Very cool.
It's probably not a good option. It's probably something I don't want in there. But
we don't know that.
Now that I know it exists, I'm like, oh, I've golden opportunity miss.
You have to cook.
Absolutely.
So were there, kind of gone through and talked a lot about different things, but were there any cards in particular that surprised you because they were better than you thought, or cards that you thought were going to be really good and they weren't quite as good as you expected?
Go ahead, Hacker.
Traxian for me. I didn't realize, but I guess that's kind of my fault for not fully understanding the card beforehand. I knew that it discounted Deathwing, and I knew that it heralded as well, but I thought that only I thought for some reason it would like herald more if you've already heralded, not increase the discount you get on Deathwing. So when I got like Ultraxian on 6 into Deathwing on 7, I was like, oh, okay, we're putting that in all the herald decks. Got it. Because at first I was like, is it actually good? Yeah, it's good.
And for me, like I said, it was probably the Colossal for Druid because I was kind of down at the Colossal for Priest felt good too. Well, it felt like it was good for my opponent playing it, so it didn't feel like it wasn't it wasn't like game ending. It wasn't behemoth, but it definitely felt like it was a solid. And that's the other thing too. Even with, like I said, even with Deathwing, it didn't feel like there was a lot of cards that just completely they played it like, oh, I guess I'm bottom writing. There was always like, hey, I have an opportunity to possibly, what do I have left? I have other things. I can do this. I just have to survive a turn and then we can swing the board or something like that. So it did feel like there was a lot of just opportunity. I don't know. The whole, it was hard to keep track of because it was just it wasn't like it was those 3 decks that ended up at the end that everyone's playing. It felt like everybody was playing everything, and that continued for the whole day. So I don't think it was pretty hard to lock on to like the cards and the very specific things that like, oh, this is going to be really good or really bad or whatever, because it just felt like everything was there. This is honestly, I don't think I've ever seen the creator community this positive outside of Jay Alexander about an expansion coming out
Ever?
and just being excited about it.
Yeah.
Ever. Like,
Yeah.
am
It's been
I
a while.
like normally people are like complaining of like, oh, I can't believe this is gonna be a problem. This is gonna be a problem. I didn't see any of that. I haven't seen any of that. Everyone just seems jazzed that like, hey, yes, we lived through the year of whatever the hell the last year was, the year of the power creep or the decrease in the power creep. And now we're ready to go. Hey, no more quests that we didn't really want to be quests, and no more whatever this BS is. It's now it's like these are things we want you to do. We want it to feel epic when you play these cards. We want you to punch an opponent in the face. They want this is basically like Rock'em Sock'em Robots now. It's just like let's just like punch each other, and I don't know. The vibe of Cataclysm has felt different. And Thursday, it felt so much different as far as everything. I don't know if you guys get the same thing, but that's how it really felt to me.
Yep. There's a lot of so historically when there's expansions, and maybe other creators as well, always say something like, I'm really looking forward to trying the new expansion. And that is true. Like I never see an expansion, I'm like, I don't want to try these new cards. Maybe I'm not as excited for some or versus others, but a lot of the times it's just I want to try something that's not what we've seen so far, which is more like against what's happening. Right now, I'm just focused on what is to happen. Like, I'm still excited to try this new expansion, but because I'm excited to try this new expansion, not because I'm excited to leave everything else, which, don't get me wrong, I am. But I'm being pulled, not pushed this time, I'll say. Mm-hmm. Which I think is what we want. You want to pull people in, not push them away from other stuff that's come out.
Yeah, I think for cards for me, like the Druid Colossal Wicker Fang was better than I expected. Like we knew it was going to be a big stat bomb. I didn't think that a 6-mana stat bomb was going to be good enough, and it definitely was because the rest of the deck was good enough with the Token Druid. Just run people over with that deck. I think that the Token Druid is going to be a thing. Sinestra was more impactful than I expected it to be. Just because I looked at it, it's just like, okay, especially if you only have a couple of heralds in, if you want to play this right on 5, what are you really doing with the rain of spells you're getting? And so many times they would slam Sinestra on 5 or 6 or whatever, and then play like 5 spells that are doubled. And it's just like, what just happened? Sometimes it didn't do anything, but there's just a lot of stuff happening that I didn't expect it to work that quickly. I don't know if that deck's going to be good. I beat the deck most of the time when they didn't get Omen on 4, but it definitely had enough to draw in. And then the Druid Shatter card, I think, is much better. I don't know if it's going to be good enough because of Shatter, but the summon 2 and give your whole board summon a 2/2 is really, really powerful. And absolutely was, made some very annoying boards in a world without Corpse Explosion.
The Paladin Shatter felt pretty good too. The summon 2 dragons or give your minions Divine Shield and +2/+2 or whatever it was. Both of those felt very good, even if you had to play them as Shatter. I think we were all concerned that like, hey, these cards aren't going to be at rate if like you can't play them together. But I found there were opportunities for which pretty much all of them that it was like, oh no, this is handy right now. I don't need to wait for it to come. Let's just do it. And it made a lot of difference.
Yep.
And I was kind of surprised by that. The Druid cards that spend the rest of your mana was like, hey, play this, and then it spends the rest of your mana and like gives like your a minion +1/+1 for each one of them or whatever it was. Like those cards felt really strong too. I was kind of surprised how good those felt, because it's kind of like Mana Thirst, how right, where it was like these cards will do things in the end of the game, and it's not like, oh, I drew a dead card. They made a difference. So I think they're definitely they're coming in some good design space here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I admit that summon and buff 2 minions when I first read it, because I played that for the first time. I'm like, oh, I understand this card now. 4 mana for 2/3/4s. I'm like, okay, I can get behind this.
Yeah,
this is fine.
Feels good. That surprised me in a pleasant way as well. I don't think there were like negative surprises too. There was just, oh, you know what? Like, yeah, okay. The Shatters was one of the Taco Tito. I know there was some concern about whether or not they would be like solid enough, but they did feel good, like all of them, at least from what I've seen. I don't know how many Shatters are on total, but every time I saw a Shatter card, I was like, yeah, that was pretty good here.
I think 5, because it's a non-Deathwing classes.
Got it.
So I did get emoted. I think it was against Warshack. I got a lot of emotes thrown at me because I got both the Shatter cards in my opening hand. So I was able to get them together pretty quickly and through a bunch of damage really quickly. So getting a couple of dunk tanks online fairly early was pretty good.
Dunk tank, that's the card I was thinking. Yeah.
Yes, it's dunk tank.
I always seem to end up playing Warshack either like in the last 3 games of a theory crafting, and I like it's I think it's 3 times in a row now that I've seen in my last 3 games. And I had a game that I was winning, and then he did something, and I remember I just not cool, dude, not cool. I was talking, I'm like, yeah, Warshack is a streamer you need to follow. He's really good, and he does that to me. I'm like, never mind, he's a jerk. But yeah, no. And this is probably a testament to how diverse even the theory crafting meta was. But I never felt bad losing. And even like sometimes in a theory crafting, we just lost to that stupid card again. Jeez, Ziliax did the thing or whatever it is. I didn't get that. And I think it could be, we may have that in the future. It may be Deathwing, it may be something, but I never felt bad dying. It felt like, okay, yeah, all right, next game. Like,
yep.
I don't know. If Hearthstone feels good. Hearthstone's back.
Yeah, I was thinking about it with the other 2 questions I had just copied from last time that we talked about, where there are things that get better or worse ones for outside of the theory crafting environment, and I don't like. Obviously, things will be different. There's a couple decks that we didn't see that are going to be carryovers from what we currently have in standard. There wasn't a lot of Dragon Warrior going around. I know that there's at least somebody playing a bunch of Dragon Warrior, because I saw that someone comments just like, yep, sorry, that was me, just throwing all the new dragons in this. But I don't feel like there's a ton that is going to stick around that we didn't see. There's a few, lingering archetypes that are going to be revamped. Like, I think, Blood Death Knight, switches to the Herald and an Ixia route, to where we're still going to see a controlled Death Knight, but it's going to be very different than what we currently have. So where it's not going to be a perfect copy of the theory crafting environment, but I don't think that it's going to be as drastic of a change as what it was for some of the sets this past year, where it's just like, oh, these quests look pretty decent, and now they're 30% once we get to actual standard. I don't think that's going to happen as much.
I was going to ask what you guys thought would be a good recommendation for people to play during theory crafting, but I feel like it's really hard to pin down right now. Doesn't feel like, hey, you need to play this or that. It feels like you can just pretty much play whatever, go with whatever the brawl, what I call it.
Theory crafting.
Sorry. The pre-release brawl. Like, I don't think that there's any real. I mean, people are going to play Dragon Warrior because that's the deck that I think is most viable to play from the previous expansion that still has a lot of cards. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some that are too old or whatever, but I feel like that's going to be the deck you're going to see the most from the players that don't have sets. But I think other than that, it's just like, go with God, have fun, play whatever you got. You're going to just whatever. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
You'll actually be able to, whatever legendary you open, you're actually going to be able to build a deck and play it because of if it's a Herald deck. But even if it's not, I think a lot of the classes have playable legendaries. So I think I don't think it's going to be completely gone. Like the feels bad of, oh, I opened this, but there's not really a deck that can play it. I think you're going to have a lot of the time something you can just play, even if it's not going to be like, play this to farm packs or whatever. I think you're just going to be able to play something and have fun with it and perform at a level where you're not sad that you're playing something you're interested in.
So next week when we're like, oh, Dragon Warrior dominates meta, that was the worst theory, that was the worst brawl ever.
See, the thing is, a lot of the payoff cards for Dragon Warrior aren't sets of are going to be in. Like, we have no gift wrap. Well, we don't have the 8 mana Kindred card that costs 3 less. Like, there's good dragons. A lot of the good dragons from that deck are still going to be in, but you don't have like these are why I play it. Like, you don't have the Dark Gift stuff. So even those decks are going to lose, I think, enough tools. The Brawl sets are super weird this time with the restrictions that they put in it, especially taking away the legendaries. That's a lot of stuff that's gone, and it's going to be very watered down, and it's going to be very much a free-for-all for what actually works, I think.
Yeah, it feels very intentional, to the point that they've probably tested it and already taken out outliers, because of how I don't think we've really said much negative things about the Theorycrafting the expansion coming up right now, and the changes and the reverts and stuff. Like, I think they're on a really big roll, and I think that the Brawl, or I hope so, but I do think that the Brawl will follow this roll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, and plus, you don't want the Brawl to be a herald of the meta. I see what I did there. But like, yeah, you really don't. You don't want to be like, okay, the Brawl, the dominated deck in the Brawl was Control Warrior, and so that's going to carry forward and be the thing. You want it to be like its own little thing. And unfortunately for folks like World 8, we're also getting the Franken meta at the same time, so it's not like a separate thing. And I think that's kind of gone away a little bit, right? Like, it's like you still have the Franken meta, but everyone's playing the Brawl or whatnot. I don't know. I think this is great. I don't know. I'm just excited. Like, last year we had, like, how many times did we have an episode of this or any other podcast where we're just like, yeah, Hearthstone really needs a win right now. A lot. And I feel like they're starting to rack up those wins. And this launch is, I'm excited. I'm giddy.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll be coming off, like, LanguageHacker is going to find his way into the Worlds, and we're going to be super excited, and we're just going to get the playoffs. We're going to get our new expansion after that. It's all going to be gravy.
We'll see.
Anything else, Pylet?
No, unless you guys have some other thoughts. I think that wraps up Theorycrafting pretty well. We can talk more. Well, us two could talk more next week about kind of what after we get the pre-release Brawl, what we're thinking of the new set and first week decks to try.
All right, but I do have one last question. So our question of the week for LanguageHacker is, and this is kind of along the lines of what we've been talking about. So going into the new season, if you had to pick one deck to climb to Legend with and play, the only deck you could play with, you had to play with it till the month is over, and your goal is to get the highest rank possible, what would your pick be with the new set?
With the new set?
Like, you're like, I have to pick one deck, I have to lock it in, and this is the only deck I can play, and I have to take it and get as high a Legend as possible. Basically, what do you think the strongest deck's going to be that you want to play?
The thing is, like, they all feel at this point competitively viable, so I'm just going to pick something that I like. Like, the Death Knight package kind of looks cool to me. I didn't get a chance to play as much as I would like, so I would probably just jam that. A Herald Death Knight.
That's kind of what I thought. So, if you'd like to support the show, you can do so by joining us over at patreon.com/BreadAndButterHS. You get access to the raw audio early. You get access to a members channel on Discord. You can help shape future questions. Like, we announced that LanguageHackers would be on the show. If people had questions for him, they could have asked. You get entry into giveaways when we have them. So that's always a nice little thing. And if you'd like to help us in a non-financial way, you can let people know about the show and let us know how we're doing. Leave us a 5-star review. It helps. Or if you need to leave us another review, that's fine. But we'd rather have those 5 stars. And you look for us at BreadAndButterHS on YouTube. LanguageHacker, where can people find you if they want to catch you on social media?
Twitch.tv/LanguageHacker is the best place. I sometimes make funny tweets, but I'm not a big fan of Twitter, so I'm not going to push that.
And Pylet, where can people find you?
You can find me Pylet712. That's Pylet on Twitter and Blue Sky. Don't post much, but lurking there normally.
And you can find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, and various other places at titosantanahs. LanguageHacker. Anything coming up this recently soon that you'd like to promote or shout out?
Not for myself, but shout out to all the admins and people who've been involved in the organization of these sports events, like the weekend tournaments, the Swiss and Blitz tournaments that they've been doing for the competitive cycle has been very well received, and they've been run very well. So hats off to everyone involved in that.
Pylet?
Yeah, gonna couple different shout outs here. Shout out to JT Snow for throwing a lot of ideas for Demon Hunter in our Discord. Shout out to Prenatial Jolt C, who chatted about a couple weeks ago because we had a great CCLS match, and he ended up winning the Coin Concede Listener Series today. And shouted us out because he won it with the Triple Unholy Death Knight that we'd been talking about enough, and turned him on to playing. And then other kind of little side note, programming note. I think we're going to be recording on a different night next week. Well, we're going to be if I'm going to be on the show. Because I think, is it next week that we're going on Saturday? We'll post that, but be on the lookout for that. I'm out of town next week when we normally record, so programming note, we'll be recording a different night, probably going live with that. We'll post that when we have that settled in.
Yeah, we might have to change that too, because I just literally 5 minutes ago, my friend said next Saturday in Derry there's a Steely Dan cover band, so we're probably gonna go see that. So, we'll have to probably figure that out. And also Joltik, I'm sure he said that, hey, I got there because Bread and Butter gave me the Triple Unholy Death Knight, but also because I got to be a better player by listening to Bread and Butter and just getting there, right? So winning the Coin Concede Listener Series is no irony there. Doing from anyway. I'd like to shout out everybody that came to my stream for Theory Crafting, because it was normally there's the people that have been hanging out in my stream and then a bunch of people trying to win codes, which that's how these things work. But I actually had a bunch of new people that were there that were like, hey, I have found you because of the podcast, or I have found you because of your YouTube. And they were there for bundles, I'm sure, but also they hung out and they were interactive, and it felt much better than some of the previous Theory Craftings, as far as talking to people, and people were there because they were excited because they have found me from somewhere else or whatever like that. So anyone that has done that, I appreciate you. It really, really makes a difference. And I also like to shout out This Week in Hearthstone, who I've been going back and forth with like a million times, talking about how should we post this and when should I post that, and throwing thumbnails. What do you think about this thumbnail and all that? So it's been a journey. We're getting there. But anyway, guys, I think we're toast. We'll see ya.
See ya.
See ya.